Have you ever felt like your relationship with food is holding you back from feeling your best? Maybe you've been stuck in the cycle of dieting, overanalyzing what you eat, or feeling guilty about food choices. If that sounds familiar, then this episode is going to be a game changer for you. Today I sit down with Cara Clark, an integrative nutritionist and wellness educator, to break down her 5 food fundamentals, simple strategies that will help you ditch food confusion, fuel your body properly, and feel amazing every single day. And we talk all about her brand new book coming out on May 13th called The Feel Good Way: Simple Recipes for a Better Life. Also during this episode, she shares the ideal macro balances for optimal energy, how to rewire your mindset around food, and practical tips for all you busy parents out there who are just trying to keep themselves and their kids healthy. By the end of the episode, you're going to have a new outlook on nutrition and a sustainable plan for feeling your absolute best. Before we dive in, if you're listening on the Apple Podcast app or on Spotify, make sure you hit the follow button. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit like and subscribe down below. All right, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Best You podcast. Today, I am super excited to be joined by the one and only Cara Clark. Today, we're going to be talking about a number of different topics, but we're also going to be hitting on her brand new book that's coming out in May called The Feel Good Way: Simple Recipes for a Better Life. It releases May 13th. There you go. There's a cover. Releases May 13th, but it is available for pre-order right now. And there's actually a couple of cool early bonuses that you get with the pre-order if you hop on it today. So we'll make sure we have the link down in the description and the show notes. But today we're going to cover a few different things. I want to hear kind of a little bit of your journey on becoming a nutritionist. I know you played college basketball. I want to hear about some of the 5 fundamentals from your book, how you've worked on your relationship with food, and how you work on fostering a healthy relationship as a mom of 4 girls, because I know that's really difficult in today's age. And then we'll probably address a little bit of kind of the nervous system and the spiritual side of wellness, and how that plays a role for you as well. But let's start off with your journey to becoming kind of a nutritionist in this part of your life. You were a college basketball player at Northeastern State University in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. Damn, I practiced 3 times.
Tahlequah, good job.
Tahlequah, Oklahoma. I practiced that before we hopped on. And I kind of botched it. But anyways, and then I know there was a time where you weren't really feeling all that good in your body, and you had different health things going on. What did, and then you also had a job where you weren't really all that happy with. When did you feel like you started to transition into making some good choices from a health perspective that led you kind of down the journey of becoming a nutritionist?
Gosh, you're a really good reporter. I'm impressed. I feel like you remembered more things about me than I know. So it started for me in college as an athlete. There was not, at that point, I hate to admit it was 20 years ago, 18 or 20 years ago, something like that. There was not a lot of guidance when it came to nutrition or even real food. And, when you're a scholarship athlete, a lot of times you're just eating what they feed you. You're eating at the restaurants they take you to. I felt like I had inflammation. I felt like my body wasn't optimal. And I was so short on who I could ask, And so a lot of it was just figuring things out on my own, putting the puzzle piece together, but driving, the optimal body, didn't happen for me in college and even after college. So in my, journey of seeking how to provide the best energy, the best immune system, the best strength, the best nervous system led me to an eating disorder. So after college, with all of this, seeking, I started to over control everything that I put in my body. And I didn't even realize I was on this path, but also I was moving from Oklahoma to California. So that's any pressure, right? So you're going from the middle of the country where nobody even takes a second glance at how somebody looks to the West Coast, where how you look literally can get you so far. And I'm not even exaggerating. And so that was part of it. I really wanted to shape my experience of moving to California and setting myself up for success. So I started studying nutrition from a performance side, meaning I thought I'm going to get my degree or certification. I'm going to work with athletes so they know better. Well, it turns out athletes don't really care unless they're hurt or on the verge of retirement. And so that was kind of like kind of a sad awakening for me because I had such a pursuit of I want to do performance nutrition. But then I turned it and I was like, you know what? Everybody I know wants to perform on some level every day. And so there's still this like athletic performance drive to the philosophy I created, the philosophy that saved me from my own eating disorder too. And that was, so I'll just get right into the philosophy and then I'll tell you more about my story too as that comes up conversationally, because my story really did shape how what I came from, starting out and I did sorority girl boot camps because I also knew they were struggling with eating disorders. And so I was kind of like helping myself and helping them at the same time, guiding them through how to work out to achieve an optimal body that isn't just how it looks, how it feels, right? And so I taught them to really focus on how they feel. I guided them through the grocery store. And then it just kept evolving because, like in Southern California, it's really hard to avoid working with celebrities. And I did it for so long as I was a new mom.
I want to stop you just really quickly because I'm interested. A lot of people, when you're thinking about how you look and thinking about how you feel, it sounds like it on the surface it can sound very different, but for some people they're so intertwined that they don't even really realize that they only think about, oh, if I feel skinny or if I think I look skinny, let's say, then I feel good. Like what are some of the things that you communicate to people and that you learned yourself to how do you actually be more in touch with how you actually feel and not really tie that necessarily to just how you look?
Well, the reality is when you feel really good, you perceive that same look in the mirror. Like you reflect, you emulate. People say you're glowing, your hair is so, like shiny. It's not just the size of your pants because sometimes filling those pants out better actually makes you feel better, right? Which is why we went with the feel good way for my book, because I really do always go back to how you feel. This is how I talk to my kids. My husband sometimes says, you ask them how they feel too much. You're making them soft, he says. But anyway, once people understand or experience, I should say, because understanding and experiencing, like you're saying, is two different things. When they experience what I call the CCN difference, which I'm going to teach here in a second, they start to focus more on how they feel, because how they look starts to come together in a beautiful way. And it's just this transformation that happens over time because my approach is sustainable, because you feel good every day, because for women, your cycles are regular. You don't have any symptoms every month anymore. I mean, imagine that you've been told all your life that these are normal and that's how you're supposed to feel once a month. But like the reality is you can feel good all the time. So I think, experiencing it is having to do it for 30 days. So what I teach and how I build my programs, I do seasonal challenges so people can just dive right in, right? And then I do a membership so I can just, keep nurturing this person that wants a sustainable approach. And then I do individual coaching like you do. And then I do group coaching similar to my individuals so that I can keep helping people nurture things. And then, it gets high level where we're reversing disease and restoring the body, especially, come 40. Everything just comes to, the tip of the iceberg.
I really like your 5 feel good fundamentals that you have that you break down. So let's kind of start off with that first one of combining macros every time you eat: 50% carbs, 20% protein, and 30% fat. Most people who are listening to this podcast are going to have heard macros and have a high level understanding of it. So we don't necessarily need to, break that down per se. But why do you feel like that is kind of the optimal range for a lot of people? Obviously, every single person is different and there's no one size fits all, but this is a very general approach that would probably work for, 80, 90, 95% of people, if you will.
Well, it works for 100% of people at various times. And once you understand it is when you get to tweak it. So like if you want to really focus on like building muscle or, tweaking the body a little bit, manipulating the macros is helpful, obviously. So that's when, once you have the broad understanding of it and you see how your body responds, then you can tweak it a little bit. And even then, I'm like, okay, 40% carbs is really the lowest I would recommend to go for the optimal body. Now, if you have other things in mind, you're a competition or, whatever, endurance athletes are 65 carbs, right? So there's a range. It's not, like you said, it's not so specific, but the general guidelines is because that's sustainable. So like if you're looking at a plate and you want to do 50% carbs, 25% fat, 25% protein, the carbs are going to be about the size of your hand, right? That's how big your carbs are. Most vegetables, fill your plate with colorful vegetables. Those are not high in carbs. The starchy vegetables, the grains, that kind of stuff is going to be about the size of the palm of your hand. Whereas protein is about the size of your fist. 4 ounces generally, up to 8 ounces sometimes if you're, bulking. And then with fat is twice as nutrient dense as protein and carbs. And I think, like you said, your audience probably has a good understanding of that. But I always say fat's about the size of your thumb. So that's going to be like the oils or some seeds or avocado, just generally if you're eating the right foods, which is part of the philosophy. So I also teach eat your macros every single meal, but keeping those meal sizes consistent. So I'm going to go backwards here in just a second because I don't know how much your audience is male, how much is female. Do you know?
It's going to be a little bit more female than male, maybe like a 70, 30, 60, 40.
Yeah, women are just more coachable. Am I right?
Yeah, I would probably agree. Yeah.
Okay, so starting at the beginning, I teach to eat within the hour of waking up, and this helps to regulate cortisol and it helps to regulate our metabolic system. How we burn fat for fuel really shows up in our energy sustainability. So if our energy is stable throughout the day, that's a pretty good indication that we're burning fat as fuel all day long, whether we worked out or not. So that's something that people are interested in. Also, women are burning out their adrenal systems because a lot of times they are diving into these philosophies that are basically teaching people to eat like men. Men can have a longer morning fast time because y'all get a hit of testosterone every day. We don't. So that changes the way your stress hormones respond. Women's stress hormones response are a lot more sensitive and it's a lot more cycle based. So based on, if you're still cycling, not whatever, I teach women to eat within that hour of waking up. That really helps to settle the cortisol levels and helps to regulate metabolic system. And then every 3 to 4 hours after that, generally I like it to be closer to 4. But when somebody's starting out eating real food, their body has to adjust. So their metabolic rate adjusts to eating that real food. Sometimes it's a quicker emptying time because the body's uptaking all these amazing nutrients and it's like, oh, I'm going to use this, where they're like, well, I'm not satisfied because I'm not eating like the crunchy chips or whatever it is, the ultra processed stuff that seems more satisfying because our body doesn't break it down very fast because it doesn't want it, right? And so sometimes when you uptick the foods that you're eating into like bioavailable healthy foods, you're gonna burn a little bit faster. So 3 to 4 hours, 5 if you're menopausal. I don't know how many. I don't know your demographics. I probably should have done more due diligence. So there's some variability, just like there is in the macro ranges. And so then I teach combining your macros every single meal, every single time you eat. The only exception really is teenage or competitive athletes. They need a little bit more glucose before they go perform. So carbs in the form of like sometimes for my soccer players that have 90-minute games can be organic gummy bears. I prefer it to be like a cutie orange. So there's always exceptions to the rule, right?
For sure.
The other exception to that, I forget what I was going to say on eating glucose by itself. Oh, the other exception to eating macros by themselves is at nighttime. I like people to get out of that nighttime snacking habit. I'd rather them finish their meal at least 2 hours before bed so we can go into rest mode. So the circadian rhythm can flow the body in the recovery and restore stages that it needs to go in. But if you're just dying of hunger, a little bit of fat isn't going to hurt anything. It actually can help get the body into a proper deep REM sleep state and support circadian rhythm. I don't need a full macro combination at night. So those are two of the exceptions to that. Since we're speaking to a high level audience, I get to do all the exceptions.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that I made up like 17 years ago because it made more sense to me than eating 7 to 9 servings of veggies a day.
Yeah.
It's 5 different colors. And so adding the variabilities of different colors and of the rainbow. So it's fruits and vegetables. People are like, wait, does, brown rice count? No, it doesn't. They'll ask the craziest stuff. And no, Skittles and Fruit Loops don't count, at least not ones from America. We're not getting into that. So 5 different colors of fruits and vegetables a day provides antioxidants. So anti-aging, we want to antioxidize the cell. We want to support the cell by pulling out the oxidation, right? So our fruits and vegetables do that, and getting 5 different colors a day supports with different phytonutrients. So each different color has a panel of, vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants and other things like that. Whereas it seems more achievable, it's also more aesthetic. We're not just hyper focused on greens, which I think sometimes the fitness world tends to focus on greens and protein, and then the body isn't supported. The gut microbiome's not supported. Our digestion's not as good. So we still like to focus on the full color array. And then keeping those meal sizes consistent. I don't want people to have like a giant dinner and a small breakfast, small lunch, or, even a tiny little snack. Like we don't do 100-calorie snacks. Our snacks are still 400 calories. They just look more like a snack than a meal.
Are you somebody who feels like they're really consistent with their workouts, but they're still not quite getting the results with the number on the scale? Well, I hate to tell you, but it's probably nutrition. I know so many people who are pretty darn consistent with their workouts, but they fall in and out of consistency with eating the right things in the right amounts. And oftentimes that's not necessarily a lack of discipline, it's a lack of education. And if you knew better, then you would do better. And that's why I'm running the Fat Loss Forever workshop. I'm gonna have a 1-hour Zoom workshop with you and a bunch of other people to discuss exactly how to determine how much you should be eating for your body weight and for your goals and your body type. I'm gonna break down how much you should be eating, what types of food you should be eating. I'm gonna educate you like you've never been educated before, and then you're gonna leave feeling empowered and super motivated and super clear on how you can actually start getting the results that you want to see with your body composition and with the number on the scale. So instead of being frustrated with the inconsistency with your nutrition and the results that are lacking, let's get educated, get motivated, and get clear on how to make that happen. So sign up for the Fat Loss Forever workshop on February 24th. You can click the button below to sign up, register today. Excited to see you guys there. Yeah, those are great and awesome things to focus on and focus on doing rather than thinking about things not to do. Because I always think that what you focus on is a large driver of your relationship with that thing and your emotions and whatnot. And so like focusing on eating 5 different things, not eating this, and this, and this. I think that's absolutely critical. So take me inside of your head a little bit. Like I know for me, I'm somebody who knows, most of this stuff. And so when I am thinking about putting a meal together, I'm kind of like thinking like, okay, there's my protein, there's my veggies, there's my fiber, there's my healthy fat. Like when you're looking at your meals on a daily basis, are you actually tracking whether or not I would assume that you're probably not tracking at this point, you more eyeball, but when you're looking at putting together your breakfast, lunch, dinner, maybe a snack, maybe dessert, depending on the day, like what's going through your head when you're putting a plate together for yourself?
That's a good question. It's so second nature to me. I haven't broken this down probably in like 15 years. Because it is intuitive, which is we talk about a lot in the book, the intuitive approach. So obviously when you're just starting macros, you're going to want to follow a plan. You're going to want to have a macros coach or somebody help you design this, or track it. I'm not a huge fan of tracking. I think it consumes a lot of emotional energy. I think people a lot of times rate themselves as good or bad, but going inside my own head is I guess I think about protein first. Like, how am I going to surround my protein, right? Yeah. For me too, as a mom of 4, I don't like often get to sit down and eat my own meals that I designed for myself anymore. A lot of times it's what they didn't finish or whatever. So like I make my kids acai every single morning. They love it. I add collagen and I add a protein powder to it. And then they add other berries and fruit and granola and hemp seeds is generally. So typically I have like 3 eggs or 6 turkey sausages and then how do I surround that? Well, we always have sourdough, we homemade usually, and we always have a plethora of whatever fruits are in season right now. That's still pears and kiwis are coming in season. And there's another bright one that I was going to say. Can't remember. So I always try to do two different colors of breakfast. So
Okay.
typically, unless I have time to make myself what I would call like a Buddha breakfast bowl, which is my favorite with sweet potatoes and whatever's left over from vegetables, broccoli or Brussels sprouts or whatever, then I'm just eating their leftovers and I protein first and then surround it with the colors, carbs, fat is a part of my protein usually.
Yeah.
I always have fresh avocado too if I need it.
Yeah.
Like say I have a ton of meetings and I don't have a 4-hour window where I can eat again, I'm gonna shoot for that 5-hour window. I'm gonna bulk it up with extra fat.
Mm,
Give me more
okay.
stability. So that, and then lunch is always whatever was left over from dinner. Because like I said, I don't really have a lot of time and dinners are always super macro balanced. And it's more of an intuitive approach for me. I just make my own dinners that I have in my books and my cookbooks and my member portal.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. I appreciate you taking inside of your head a little bit. Now, to go a little bit kind of to part of the discussion that we touched on in the beginning, like your relationship with food. Having worked with so many people now, everybody's relationship with food is so different. And so how you talk about food with people is so different and how they approach food is so different. And everybody kind of started forming their relationship with food, good or bad, as a child. And I think there's a few lines in your book that I'm going to read real quick. You say there's a lot to let go of when it comes to the kitchen. People come to me saying that they're busy, that they aren't good cooks, or that they hate cleaning up the mess. And because you grew up in a family of 7 kids, things were always a rush. They were a rush in the kitchen. I've had to rewire my mindset that things can be calm in this space. And me personally, like I grew up with an older brother and we were always like relatively small and we were always like, how much can we eat? Like how much can we gain from before we start eating to after we start eating? And so like that actually still relationship haunts me in some ways because I'm like, how much can I eat? How much can I eat? How much can I eat? And then I'm like uncomfortably full. And so like I'm continuing to work on like rewiring my relationship. It's relationship with food. It's obviously gotten better, but still needs probably a little work. But how have you yourself like rewired your relationship with how you've seen food, having come from a place where it wasn't great at one point?
Yeah, and thankfully growing up, my parents really did focus on real foods, and so that wasn't a part of it. And thankfully, because I think that part of the story is sometimes the hardest for people. But I've done a ton of nervous system work, and I feel like in the last 2 years, people have recognized and said, "Oh, you've changed. Like I'm not, quick to anger anymore," which I used to be in the kitchen. I used to really reflect like how my parents acted in the kitchen, and I was like, I don't like how I feel. I don't like how the girls are acting, they're reflecting it, they're arguing, whatever. So I start every day in prayer, which leads me to the kitchen to prepare the breakfast, to prepare the 4 lunches. And I consecrate that space and I consecrate it to really reflect like my love for them because I am making their 4 lunches because I love them so much, not because I have to, right? And so it's a rewiring of sorts and reminding of sorts, but also like taking a minute to do the breath work if I need it. If I feel like haunted from my past, like you're saying, at dinner time when we're trying to get them out for sports and like, 4 different places at the same time, and there's all these carpools, like if you're not a logistics minor, but you want to be a mom of 4, like go study logistics because I don't even know how we do it. But I have to just sometimes do some box breathing because my nervous system's too wound up. Sometimes I turn on music and we dance, and that's kind of been a big one for us because I'm learning more and more with the autonomic nervous system that it listens to our actions, not our words. So I can say, I'm safe in this space. I'm good. Like things are different. My autonomic nervous system doesn't understand that. It's like speaking French. And so like dancing, shaking it out like an animal would do, so to speak, really helps to kind of set the tone for like safety. So important conversations can happen. I have teenage girls now, like they're going to sit at the counter and tell me some of the most serious things they've ever told me. And I have to not react, And so in order for me to have this moment in this place, because it's always the kitchen with the mom, I have to regulate my own nervous system. And so I go into the kitchen with either I did some breath work or I did some prayer or we're going to dance because it's been an intense day.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And those are some good practical things, like you said, starting off with a prayer, and you kind of share that prayer in the book, which is really cool. And then, like you said, doing some box breathing and doing some dancing, all very practical things that anybody can do at any time. I'm somebody who, as we kind of discussed really quickly before the podcast, like I don't have kids yet, want to have kids someday, and somebody who's very health conscious and want to ensure that my kids are health conscious, but in a healthy way, not in an unhealthy way. And I think sometimes people who are very health conscious can lead to the most unhealthy relationship with health, if you will. So what are some things that you do personally with regards to trying to foster the best relationship possible, not with just with food, but with health, with body image, with your daughters? Are there things that you make sure you say a certain way, or there's things that you make sure you don't say? Like, how does that look like in y'all's household?
Yeah, it's just really open conversation. I think, this stage of life is really different. When they're little, the way that you foster it is they eat what you eat, and it's colorful and it's balanced and it's nutrient dense and nothing's a big deal. And so my kids are way less picky than my husband. And I think part of it, like they think a birthday dinner is like salmon and roasted potatoes with fresh garlic. Like that to them is a meal, right? They're not asking for pizza for their birthday. And there's nothing wrong with pizza either. And so when it changed was when they started to go to preschool and then birthday parties. And I feel like for my oldest, she didn't even know what a juice box was until she was like 5. Like she didn't even like pizza, the party stuff, the kids' food. My kids would want to eat before they went, and I'd always have a little cooler bag with blueberries and avocado and like cheese sticks and stuff like that. And it wasn't because we were so strict. It was because they didn't like the way they felt. So like they would eat the cupcake and then they'd be raging, right? Because I wasn't going to restrict the cupcake. I have a kid that's gluten-free, and so we brought our own cupcakes, of course. Yeah. So that changes too. But again, it's like fostering it from the early days carries it on to the stage I'm at now. So their understanding is also protein first. So like if they want to have some cookies or whatever, either it's with the meal or they're going to have a string cheese before. So they already know, like, I'm going to balance my macros. They still ask me, Mom, can I have a yogurt or whatever, which is funny to me because I'm like, you guys are old enough to make your own decisions, but I don't make them feel bad about asking me either. And also don't make them feel bad about like wanting ice cream. And we make it a fun, special occasion to go get ice cream. There's no like guilt involved, and enjoying a treat once in a while. And it's just more, have you had a little protein? So if they come home from school and it's a beautiful sunny day and we live in a neighborhood with a cute little ice cream shop, if they want to go get ice cream, they need to have a handful of nuts or something before. And that's kind of just the way it goes. I see them now kind of communicating to their own friends. Their friends are asking them questions about food. Some maybe because, I do post on this all the time, but some tell my kids that they have eating disorders, which is ironic. Or they make fun of the way they, how they bring like leftover lemon chicken rice soup to school. They bring real food to school, and that's what they want. That's what they crave. That's what they know is going to support their learning. And then their after school sports. So a lot of it is communicating what they communicate to other people, because it's already a part of their life so much that there's not arguments over it. They do know that food impacts the way their bodies look. And of course, we live in an area where people care how they look, right? So it's not something I'm blind to, but they're athletes and they want to be strong. So it's more like, can you see my abs? And, like, can you see the cut in my leg, and not so much like fitting into a size 0.
Yeah. No, that's a very actually important distinction too. A couple other quick questions along the same lines. It sounds like you've got this part pretty good because you fed your kids mainly real foods growing up, and so their palates are naturally craving that kind of stuff. But a lot of people that I work with, and a lot of people who are listening right now, would love to make a particular thing for dinner, but their kids won't eat it, or their kids won't like it, and they'll complain about it. Either if that's happened to you, what do you do, or how would you help somebody or guide somebody on how to navigate that situation? Because like for me, I'm like, make the kid eat the food. Like sometimes obviously they're just not going to, they're going to refuse. And I've never had the experience of like going back and forth with a child before. So it's probably not the best way to do it all the time. But what's the balance look like practically of like encouraging them to maybe try something versus making something alternatively that's still somewhat healthy, but then trying to make sure your meal is still good. So just kind of riff on that a little bit.
Yeah, again, I'm at the stage where like if I make my own meals, I don't really care because I can eat leftovers and so if I'm doing like a super anti-inflammatory approach, I don't necessarily expect my family to do that. And I do that like twice a year. And so I keep my food separate. I just prep two meals. Like to me, that's no big deal. That makes sense. But for some people where they're not even used to preparing dinner every night, this would be a really big challenge. So my suggestion is um, to make sure you're still having all the colors and the protein, and then they get to choose. So like you put the stuff on the table, so to speak, or the
Mm.
counter and let them serve themselves. Sometimes it works to like say we're not having snacks after dinner so that they are filling their plate as much as they can, but giving them some leadership in the experience, I think has really helped a lot of people. I wrote a 12-month program called The Balanced Kid. And the recipes in that are like what kids want. It's like a chicken nugget and like, the all beef hot dog type of thing. Um, and French fries, but like everything is modified, right? So
Mhm.
that's one approach that a lot of my clients have used when they were later to the game, is what I call it.
Yeah.
And it's never too late to change. And, with kids too, I'm always working with families with athletes. So the conversation's a little easier. Like, hey, are you happy with how strong and fast you are? You know? Well, here's how you can get stronger and faster. So you also relate it to like what makes them tick.
Yeah.
Do you want to academically achieve? Well, like you need omega-3 from, these fatty fishes or these seeds in order for your brain to be able to consume that much information a day. So, all kids are interested in something, right? And so I always try to go back to how they're interested. Like I coached this hockey school on nutrition, and I was like, they were tiny. And I was like, are you guys happy with your size? Like how big you are right now? And they're like, no, I want to grow so much. My dad already has me lifting weights and all this stuff. And I was like, do you know that the biggest period of growth at your age is before midnight? And they're all like, that's when I play video games. And I'm like, well, so do you want to play video games or do you want to grow? And so like all their parents emailed me saying, I'm so thankful you said that. They're putting themselves to bed. It's not an argument anymore. Like video games are gone. So it's really just hitting on what relates to them. And that could be, I have 4 kids. That could be different for each kid.
Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. Thinking about how that person is wired and making it so that the conversation is angled in that direction. That's really good.
But in order to do that, both parents have to be supported. Both parents have to feel good, right? And so I'm always
Mhm.
going back to like how you feel is going to reflect in the whole home. So like I prioritize my sleep, I prioritize not drinking, I prioritize my macros and that sort of thing so that I can feel good, so that I can have the energy to have these conversations. Because at the end of the day, for a parent, it's all about like the energy to parent.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, if you don't have energy, you're gonna be quick. Your nervous system's not gonna be in the right spot. You're gonna be frustrated, and you're definitely the conversations are hard to uh, angle it in those particular directions as it is. Even if you are full of energy, and if you have poor energy, then that's certainly going to be much more difficult. I think I'm going to finish with the dinner strategies for busy weeknights. It's to an extent kind of what we've been talking about, but you just mentioned before we hopped on that you have 4 girls who are getting ready for school, and there's lunches going around. People are trying to figure out what they're going to wear and stuff like that. And then at night, people have got different practices to go to, and so they're all over the place. What are some practical tips for families and parents who are really in the thick of it right now, where their kids they're Ubering their kids all over the place from one practice to another, and they're really in the thick of it? What are some practical tips that you can use to help them out?
The most practical is preparing. So planning ahead on, Sundays, hopefully Sundays somewhat sacred in your house where you give yourself some time to plan. I notice even for myself, if I planned out the dinners ahead of before Monday gets there, then I'm more likely to stick to what I plan. And I'm going to plan easy things. I always say stick to the S's, like stir fry, soups, sheet pan, where you can combine everything in one and there's almost zero prep involved.
Mm.
Slow cooker. So all the S's are the quickest meals, smoothies. Sometimes My kids they're leaving at 4 or whatever. They don't have time for dinner and they'll eat dinner when they get home. So smoothies are a quick, easy, balanced option to send them out the door with. So, there's no real trick there except changing the way you approach it. And that's a mindset thing, as you know, like preparing on a Sunday rather than lounging and watching a TV show or movie or whatever, that takes a lot of discipline. So
Yeah.
it has to be on some level a mind over matter to get prepared to plan. In my house, I've been doing this, like I said, for 18 plus years. I have all the foods on hand that I need. I stock up on my meats, and I talk about that in the book too. I talk about like what's in my pantry and what's in my fridge and freezer that I can use at any moment. So there's a lot of default options in my house. Even like, organic canned stuff that makes life a lot easier. So I think it's just getting in the habit of it, doing it for 30 days, trusting that how you feel is going to keep getting better, and do it for the next 30 days. Then you have the foods on hand.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think it all comes back to sitting down and preparation and thinking ahead of time, because a lot of people are just kind of going from A to B and then B to C and then C to D and thinking they're going to make the best decisions possible, when it's like, first off, you're not going to have the time to put these things together if you don't even know what you're going to put together. And then, like you said, the good default option, is so good, because then lack of time can't really be an excuse, because it's like you have things that are default that don't take that much time. And I love the stick to the S's thing. That is so good. Stir fries, soups, sheet pans, slow cooker, and smoothies. I think so many people are wondering, like, what should I make for dinner, especially if I'm short for time? And it's like, boom, memorize those, 5 things, and you're going to be good to go. And you have a lot of different ideas and flexibility within those 5 things too. So it's not just the same smoothie, the same sheet pan recipe. It's like so many different options. So this has been absolutely amazing. Everybody I know is going to have find so much value in taking a lot of notes here today. You guys need to make sure you go grab her book coming out May 13th, The Feel Good Way, Simple Recipes for a Better Life. Again, it comes out May 13th, but you can pre-order today and get a couple of awesome bonuses as well. You can also follow her on Instagram at Cara Clark Nutrition, and her regular website, caraclarknutrition.com. We'll have all that stuff linked up in the show notes below. Is there anything else that any other place that people should go, or anything else you want to share?
That's all the best places for them to go. I think if they're thinking about starting out, the book is obviously a great place to start. But if they don't want to wait till May, they can always jump in when my challenge is. If they're like, okay, I need this now. And every little bit counts. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're not rating the perfection system. We're rating it on take it meal by meal, day by day,
Yeah.
Every day you feel a little bit better.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And you've got given some great thing to focus on with your feel good fundamentals, with your macro breakdown, your eat within an hour of waking up, have something every 3 to 4 hours if you can, like so many different great things to focus on to feel good and to feel the way that you want to feel. Other than that, that's all we got today, Cara. This has been awesome. And I know so many people have gotten a lot of value. You guys make sure you follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, hit like and subscribe down below and share it with somebody who you think will find value from it. But Cara, that's all we got today. Thanks so much.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
What an amazing conversation with Cara, packed with simple, practical nutrition strategies to help you feel your best without overcomplicating things. Her 5 food fundamentals make it easy to fuel your body properly, improve your energy, and create a healthier relationship with food. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you hit the follow button on the Apple Podcast app and Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit like and subscribe down below. But here are my 3 biggest takeaways from today's episode and interview. Number 1, balance is key. As much as possible, if you can stick to around 50% carbs, 20% protein, 30% fats, that's going to be the most ideal ratio from a macronutrient standpoint on a regular basis for stable energy, satiety, and overall well-being. Takeaway number 2 is that your relationship with food matters. It is huge, and it can be rewired. We're all raised with a certain mindset about food, but you can rewire your habits. You can rewire what you focus on to build a healthy, guilt-free approach to eating. Remember, angling your discussions, especially with your kids, angling your discussions about food towards the way that they are wired is absolutely huge to creating a healthy relationship. And then third and final takeaway is that healthy eating is possible for busy people, and especially busy parents. Whether you're a parent entrepreneur, always on the go, like small strategic changes can help you prioritize nutrition without stress. I loved these 2 things that she gave us. Stick to the S's. Like, how easy is this to think about on a regular basis if you're trying to think about what to eat? How can I make food in bulk for a lot of people, and how can it be quick? Stick to the S's. Stir fries, soups, sheet pan meals, slow cookers, and smoothies. And each of those 5 different S's have a plethora of options within them to continue to mix things up. And then the second practical tip was having good default options always in the house, because when you are in a time pinch and you didn't get to prepare in advance, having good default fallback options is always something that you should be able to have on hand to fall back on. If you can do these things, man, your relationship with food is going to be better. You're going to look better. You're going to feel better, and you're going to get closer to the health and fitness goals that you want to achieve. And ultimately, you'll get closer and closer to your best you.